Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl and welcome to Davos in Switzerland, where we have come to take a look at the all-new Cupra Ateca ABT. Since we couldn't floor the car out on the snow for the best exhaust sound, let's start with a comparison of the exhaust notes in dry conditions, comparing the standard Cupra Ateca with a normal sports exhaust and the optional Akrapovic exhaust you can only get with the limited edition. So, here's the standard Cupra, and here's the Akrapovic. Stylistically, you're not going to notice a huge amount of difference in the ABT from the standard Cupra Ateca. The reason being that this is almost an after-sales service, but it's being done with and in cooperation with Cupra. So you buy your standard Cupra Ateca and then it goes off to ABT for modification. So just to look at one from the front on, you would never know any difference at all. And I think that's part of the appeal. But once you get around the side, things start to change. 4 meters 32 in length or 172 inches. This car has exactly the same dimensions as a standard Cupra Ateca. Well, the Cupra is actually a very aggressively styled car anyway. It wants to suggest sportiness and dynamism in its standard situation. But here, a couple of things have changed. I think for my taste, they work really well visually. As you can see immediately looking, the suspension has been dropped by 25 to 30 mil, and that significantly reduces the visual height of these wheel arches. So make sure that doesn't mess with the overall aesthetic of the car. We have unique ABT 20-inch rims. Nothing radical has gone on back here either. But of course, don't forget it is a Cupra, so it is that much more sporty than a standard Ateca. You still have these nice standard Cupra exhaust ports. And just to let people know you did spend the extra, there's a nice small ABT logo. Just so those who know will still know. Let's take a look and see what's underneath the bonnet. What you're looking at right there is, to all intents and purposes, the same as the standard Cupra Ateca engine, and that is a 2-litre TSI 4-cylinder. Now, standardly, when you buy this car, it's going to produce 300 horsepower and 400 newton meters of torque. That all combines to produce a top speed of 247 kilometers per hour and a 0 to 100 time of 5.2 seconds. But after ABT have gotten into it, you're going to be getting a 0 to 100 speed of 5 seconds, a top speed of 255 kilometers per hour, 440 newton meters of torque, and an additional 50 horses, bringing you in at 350 horsepower. Now, if you're looking at this engine and thinking, but this looks suspiciously similar to what I would expect from a standard Cupra Ateca, other than this rather fetching badge that they fitted to the front, most of what has happened here considers taking into account how the electronic management system of the engine functions. So you're not structurally changing what the engine does or any physical dimension of it, only how it performs and behaves. So what some people used to call chipping, I think that's effectively what we're talking about. You can see the engine control unit right here. So that really does manage to wring the most practical use out of this car. What do I mean by that? Well, if you speak with an engineer, they'll always tell you that there is usually a little extra power that can go into getting dragged out of these engines, but you want to make sure that you're not damaging the way the engine performs or the lifespan of the car in doing it. So ABT have maximized what this engine can deliver, and hopefully we'll be able to see the benefit of that once we take it for a drive. Let's take a very quick look inside. Now, if you're not familiar with the standard Cupra Ateca, which to all intents and purposes, as far as the interior goes, this is, the best way to describe it is a standard Ateca with sports, and more sports added. So everything about the visual aesthetic of this car and its practical experience should lend you to think it's just that much more sporty, dynamic, punchy, and I think it's fair to say youthful as well. So if you take a look at those seats, you can see that they are just that much more than you would expect from a standard Ateca. If you are familiar with Cupra from beforehand, nothing has changed here. Again, this is a standard Cupra Ateca that has only experienced a modification with the engine and with the suspension. If you're watching this thinking, come on, Brian, we want details, we want more information, please watch some of our Cupra Ateca reviews. We have done several and in great detail. This is all about the ABT version of this car. Well, as you can see from our surroundings, it's a little bit snowy and icy out here. And as much as I think that Seat and Cupra like me, I'm not so sure how much they would if I take their one and only ABT and put it into an ice bank. So I think the best thing we can do is find the right person to show us what this car can really deliver. And that would be Jordi Gené. So, who's a better person to bring us out and to show us what this car can achieve than a man who has raced in the World Touring Car Championship? Not satisfied with that, he also has done 24-hour Le Mans and recently racing with the TCR. So, a pretty qualified expert to show us exactly what a difference that lowered suspension and those extra horses make under this bonnet. Jordi, snow, favourite surface to drive on? How do you feel about it?
Well, I feel really happy because it's a good fun and it's conditions that are very different from what I normally drive at home. So everything that is different is a challenge, and as a challenge with such a sporty car like this one, it's really a good mood and a good opportunity for me.
Now, you've spent possibly more hours in the Cupra Ateca having fun testing it, driving it in different challenging environments than almost anybody else. So you must be ideally placed to tell us in immediate terms of handling what a difference has been made by ABT to this car.
Well, it's let's say that we have a very good base with Cupra Ateca. It's a car that performs really well, but there's always room for some improvements. And ABT, as a very specialist in making cars perform more, has gone to some particular places and managed to extract a little bit more sportivity and a little bit more performance out of that car, either in the engine as in the chassis. If we have a closed area, then we can stress a little bit more our car, our performance.
We're very lucky because of the weather. There was some question as to whether we were going to be able to access this part of the hill. But fortunately, we have a closed road, which really means that Jordi can show us exactly what we can do. So we start off in sports mode?
Yes, I think it's better sports or Cupra, even though for safety, as I said, and for traction, the snow condition would help. But if we're going to have fun, it's better to go in the more sportive mode. And
so exactly what is changing in the setup of this car when you put it into Cupra mode?
We have some changes in many areas. Suspension, the car is a bit harder. That's why for snow maybe not ideal. But for the differential mode, it will help us a little bit more. In the way the ABS acts, also it's a little help. The feeling of the steering wheel is different. The feeling of the throttle is different. All this will make us a bit more fun.
Well, fun for us in the front. We'll have to see how Thomas gets on in the back. Here we go.
Okay. I also do another thing, which is I will disconnect the ESC in order to make it a bit more fun. And we take a look at how the conditions are. So let's go for it. So from now on, if I put too much power, the car will start drifting. But you see that it's always a nice, very nice condition where the traction is going always to the tire that has more grip. But now obviously it's me that has to be careful and don't make any mistake with it. It's not bad for a road car, huh?
You have driven in any of the 24-hour races where it snowed?
Well, in the Nürburgring, in the Nordschleife, we had not snow itself, but we had a lot of ice on the track. That was a very tricky condition, especially with slick tires.
Wow, you did not have time for a change.
No, we had to. It's so long corner, so long lap that we had no time to change till I came back. So for a few kilometers, I had to handle with the slicks on the icy conditions.
Honestly, was that frightening?
A little bit, because Nürburgring is so special, it's so fast that these conditions really make you work very hard.
Well, hopefully there's nobody else on this closed road who's going to make us challenged for how we're enjoying it. You really can feel a lot, or I think you can in terms of the ride, that lowered suspension. It feels a lot more dynamic. Does that translate to the driving experience as well?
Well, everything that makes the car lower and less shock absorber movement, that will give us a faster reaction. So it's less time between I press the brake and this weight goes to the tire. And even in conditions like this, which are very critical, you see that the car is really strong and low and gives me good feeling.
This is great. I was saying to Jordi before how I would love to be able to drive the car up here like this, but one, honestly, I don't have the technical skill, but two, I cannot take the risk with this car in these conditions, and it is such fun to be able to come out and to see how these roads can be driven. Now, we don't have special tyres, I should say, for this experience. These are the standard 20-inch Cupra Ateca Pirelli tyres, yes?
Well, it's a snow tire, but nothing special. It's a tire that anyone can buy for himself. So it says it's a snow Pirelli tire.
The traction feels really good on these roads, and they're not prepared in any way, are they? There's no salt, no grit, no nothing here.
No, we just try to remove some snow in order to go by, and that's it.
Well, if you haven't had the opportunity to drive the snow mode on any of the Volkswagen Group vehicles, I can tell you it really is absolutely fantastic. Yes, okay, it's not going to be as much fun as turning all the assistance systems off, but it does, as you might expect, exactly the reverse of that. It heightens the responsiveness of all of those systems, making your car a lot safer to drive in snowy and icy conditions. And it really delivers. It's a lot more secure on its feet than you would standardly expect from the experience of your everyday regular car of driving when the conditions suddenly and dramatically change. So, all of that said, is the apt Cupra Ateca any different in the real world from the standard? Well, clearly the answer to that is a resounding yes. Now you're going to have a lot more power and a lot more dynamism in terms of how the engine interacts when you put your foot down, but even around town, everyday driving like this, it feels a lot more agile and dynamic, and the reason for that is that uprated sport suspension and the decrease in ride height. The standard Cupra Ateca has a 0 to 100 speed of 5.2 seconds. This car, the ABT version, has a 0 to 100 speed of 5 seconds and the limited edition 4.9. But in real world driving, this car is going to be faster and more responsive. So if what you're interested is a purely dynamic driving experience, you should probably be looking at the ABT modification. If what you're looking for is a total package of a unique car, you should probably be looking at the limited edition. How do I feel about it? Well, I think the limited edition's a really great piece of kit, but I have to say, spending an extra $3,000 only on special exhaust ports, well, that's not quite my taste, although a lot of enthusiasts tell me that the sound is really quite something that they are prepared to pay for. Me, well, I'm all about that drive. So I'm going to go ABT all the way. I think what you get out of this car for that extra $6,000 in spend is a lot of extra driving dynamic and at really no cost that I can detect in terms of comfort and enjoyable ride once you have it in standing conditions around town. Now, I think personally the Cupra Ateca, just standardly as it comes off the line, is a pretty great car. At its price point, there really isn't anything that I can think of that immediately and obviously compares. But that's never going to be quite enough for some people. And I would say to those people, you really should give this a test drive. Because if you like the Cupra Ateca, then you're really going to like this. I hope you've enjoyed watching our quick look. Please, if you have any comments or questions, pop them below. We hope we'll see you again soon.